He was 9 when he lost everything. No family, no home, just a broken toy robot clutched in his hand, and a memory of his mother whispering, "You're going to change the world." At 14, he was scavenging parts from garbage heaps to build something, anything, that made him feel alive. At 17, he wrote his first line of code on a borrowed laptop in an abandoned school. At 21, he got a job offer from Google. This is not a movie. This is the story of Aarav. And this is how he rewrote his fate. Aarav was born in a small village near Kolkata, India, a place where the only lights at night came from fireflies and lanterns. His earliest memories were of his mother cooking rice over a clay stove and his father returning home from long, punishing days at the textile factory. They didn't have much, but they had love. When Aarav was 9, a gas leak caused an explosion in their one-room home. He survived. His parents didn't. He woke up days later in a government hospital, his arm wrapped in gauze, his face scratched, and his heart hollow. He never cried. Not then. The doctors called him the miracle boy. The newspapers called him the orphan. But Aarav just sat quietly in the corner of the ward, holding his melted toy robot, a birthday gift from his father, as if it were a piece of his past he could still touch. With no relatives stepping forward, the government placed him in a state-run orphanage. That was the first time he truly felt invisible. The orphanage was overcrowded, underfunded, and colorless. Food was rationed, clothes were shared, and dreams were considered luxuries. But there was one room that didn't smell of decay and despair, the storeroom. That's where old electronics were dumped, radios, broken fans, discarded typewriters. Aarav would sneak in at night and just sit there among the lifeless machines. They were quiet, predictable, unlike people. One day, he found a book buried under a pile of cables. It was a beginner's guide to electronics, yellowed, torn, but intact. That night, under moonlight, Aarav read until his eyes burned. The diagrams made sense. The parts made sense. For the first time, something in his world felt like it clicked. He didn't have formal education beyond 6th grade. He didn't even have access to electricity most nights, but every day, he'd beg the school's janitor to let him take broken devices from the storeroom. And slowly, he started fixing it. Old radios played music again. Table fans spun for the first time in years. The other kids called him Electric Baba. The staff called him weird. But he didn't care. For Aarav, machines did judge him for being poor or parentless. They just waited to be understood. At 14, Aarav met Mr. Sharma, a retired computer science teacher who volunteered at the orphanage once a week. He noticed Aarav tinkering with an old motherboard and asked, "Do you know what that is?" Aarav replied, "It's like a brain, right?" Sharma was stunned. He brought air of old computer parts, floppy disks, and eventually a dusty laptop that barely turned on. It had no battery, only worked when plugged in, and the screen flickered like a candle. But to Aarav, it was magic. It didn't even have internet. But Sharma gave him something far more powerful, a collection of offline PDFs, basic programming, Python tutorials, logic puzzles, and eventually AI concepts. "Machines that can think?" Aarav asked, eyes wide. "Yes," Sharma said, "but first, you need to teach yourself to think like a machine." For the next 3 years, Aarav lived 2 lives. By day, he cleaned the orphanage floors, helped in the kitchen, and avoided trouble. By night, he taught himself to code. At first, it was trial and error. Then it became obsession. He practiced with offline compilers, wrote basic Python scripts, built a text-based calculator, then a chatbot that simulated conversation. He didn't just want to build tools. He wanted to understand how thought worked. He created a program that played music based on mood inputs: sad, angry, lonely. The orphanage staff ignored it. They thought it was just a hobby, something weird. But Sharma saw it differently. "He's not coding," he said once. "He's healing." At 17, Sharma managed to sneak Aarav into a local tech conference using a fake student badge. Aarav wore oversized shoes and a second-hand blazer. He had never seen an air-conditioned building that big, never used real Wi-Fi, never eaten a Subway sandwich. But when he spoke about his AI mood music program during an open demo slot, people listened. The crowd was silent as he explained how he coded it without internet on an old machine inside an orphanage. Afterward, a woman from a local startup approached him. "Who taught you this?" "No one," Aarav said, "just a book and Mr. Sharma." Within a week, he was offered an internship, remote, unpaid, but real, and they gave him something more valuable than money, a working laptop and internet access. Aarav cried that night for the first time in years. A mind too big to contain. With internet access, Aarav exploded. He devoured MIT lectures, followed AI research papers, learned TensorFlow, scoured GitHub, and joined open source communities. He contributed to chatbot projects, emotion recognition software, even medical diagnostic tools. By 19, he built an AI model that could detect early signs of depression based on typing patterns and facial microexpressions, inspired by the sadness he saw in orphanage kids. He posted it online. It got shared, then featured, then noticed. One morning, he woke up to an email from a recruiter at subject line, "Let's talk." The interview that changed everything. The interview wasn't easy. It took place over multiple Zoom calls. Aarav had never done a formal interview. He borrowed a friend's shirt. He spoke with humility, stumbling through some questions, but glowing when talking about projects. They asked him where he studied. "I didn't," he said, "unless YouTube and GitHub count." They asked why he built the depression detector. He paused, then said, "Because I wish someone had built it for my mother." The interviewer was quiet for a long time. A week later, he got the offer letter. He moved to Bangalore first, started as a junior engineer on a Google Health team. Quiet, polite, and hardworking. Aarav didn't tell anyone where he came from. He just worked. He saved every rupee, sent donations back to the orphanage, and eventually funded a full tech lab inside it, laptops, internet, books, everything he never had. He paid for the education of 3 other orphans who showed tech interest. One of them would later become a data analyst. And he didn't stop. Years later, he stood in front of a packed auditorium at a TEDx event telling his story. "I wasn't supposed to be here. The statistics said I'd disappear, another number in a dusty file. But someone gave me a broken laptop, and another person gave me a chance." He paused. "I didn't grow up with opportunity. I grew up with purpose. And sometimes that's enough." You are one decision away. You may never have lived in an orphanage. You may have never lost your parents, but at some point in your life, you've felt lost, alone, unseen. Aarav's story is proof that the past doesn't define your ceiling. Your will does. You're one decision away from rewriting your own code, from stepping out of the shadows, from starting again. All it takes is one broken laptop, one open mind, one stubborn heart, and the belief that even machines can learn to think. So why can't you learn to rise?